Even the mean streets know how beautiful she is. She can't see it. The strip lights are too bright, blurring her hazel eyes until they are pupil black. Only the east of 14th Street knows who she is. Only the night and paying men know of her caramel-coated honey skin. On the 5th nightcap, she knows she wears thin her bartered soul. She knows how high the price of skin goes. She's not okay. Before the dough, she's fine with the fact that for every piece sold is a piece she'll never get back. When she's running that track and the amber sky turns flat, the strip lights come on, and she is the shadow in the midst of the cracks. The life of her lost on East 14th Road, the row. Thank you. I have an additional piece, and this piece is for all the ears who can hear it. Blackbarred. How dare you turn a blind eye like all of a sudden you're sight free? Turning your backs on the ones in need shows you're weak. Pretending wrongs didn't happen shows exactly how impotent you can be. Spinelessly trolling through life with your eyes and ears shut, unable to accept the reality. Probably wouldn't stop for a moment to show a hurting soul some hospitality with the oh well, it ain't me mentality. You try and forget the locality of other people's pain, refusing to see the commonality, refuse to empathize earnestly. We exist in the ears, eyes, lips sealed kind of society, wondering what will it take for someone to take on some responsibility. Sadly, we aren't all afforded the same opportunities and cannot always be in the race to compete. But it's past time we go about our days more selflessly. Get out the box, open your mouths to see.
Our next speaker today is Fred Dodsworth. He is a robust graduate of Berkeley City College. Fred earned his BA in creative writing at San Francisco State and is now in the MA program writing novels. He's also a board member of the Generations Reading Series. Please welcome Fred.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to read a poem that I wrote upon the death of a Berkeley poet, a fellow by the name of Gene Fowler, who was a neighbor of mine. This poem is in this current issue, and it's called The Semiotics of Silence. Poets, oh, I should tell you, Gene spent 5 years in San Quentin for armed robbery. Poets dance in our dreams after the bars close, their naked feet slapping out a rhythm to keep us from slipping into sleep. I'll remember you as you were there then, a birthmark in my brain, sitting near naked, propped up at your dining room table, not like we found you, a turtle trapped on your back, crashed up against those free weights, crushed beneath the ancient bench press, thinking you were still a prisoner, your pale, old skin, deathly, sickly, cold, gray, straggling hairs stuck wetly to your forehead, yellowed teeth like broken barnacles, spitting out poems, or just drooling in time to some secret rhythm. Yes, we propped you up in a chair so we could share ice cream and cookies and wine on your birthday, with a candle and a song and shitty diapers beneath the skimpy black briefs you still wore at 82. The room's light was as yellow as your teeth, like an exhausted wave drifting on a dead sea, hurt and or damaged, the connection lost to all articles, like bullets, like sperm, like everyone old was a child when discos looked to mirror balls like a sun indoors, like a golden Abyssinian points in the darkness to night everlasting. The dull earth radiates coldness and the scent of everything long past. St. James the infirm, a brother denied, rings random moments without meaning. This was always coming, this future built of fire on the wreckage of the past, words without end. This is a little dark. This is another one, I guess I like dark. It's called Regarding the Pain of Others, and I was really pleased that we ended up with Sharon Coleman's portrait right across from this beautiful photograph she did. This is called Regarding the Pain of Others. I'm not sure it happened. I have a terrible time distinguishing what happens from what might happen. I'm not sure the distinction is important. In the heat of this temper, I wrote letters to her. She said my lack of restraint was inspiring, though I was a few clowns short of a circus. Saying her name feels like losing her, lost to the terrible wraiths of wrath, always and ever reviewing our pasts, where everything just evaporates, where people I never met no longer live, where everyone you know dies someday. In my head, I talk to her, to the fantasy of her. She talks to her friends, and before each time she asks, "May I?" You may. She didn't hurt herself right away. She let a reasonable amount of time pass. She said when it's over, let the flames consume everything. We just wanted to feel something that wasn't lonely. Thank you.
Carla Koop likes to spend time helping people feel connected, whether that's to the natural world, their communities, or their own personal histories. Poetry is a way of bringing her into closer contact with those parts of her own life. Please welcome Carla.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm going to read two poems, and I thought they made a good pair because the first one that appeared in Milvia Street is about my maternal grandmother, and the other one is about my maternal grandfather. And I knew my grandmother quite well, even though we didn't share a language. She lived until she was 99, and I did an extensive oral history of her. And my grandfather, on the other hand, he died very soon after I was born, so I didn't know him at all. What she holds. Made in China, like my grandmother, this porcelain spoon is halfway between a box and a ball. Flat bottom, rounded sides. It held soup in China, another soup in California. Sometimes a slippery wonton seeking escape. It holds her journey around the globe. A pile of steaming, sticky rice. Memories ferment like saltfish on top. Her bridal trunk stolen from the docks of Macau. A long month of tears on board a stinking ship. Wife of a gambler for 4 long decades. A sweet and sour gift, each of 9 children. She ate long life noodles any year she could, even with handfuls of bitter spice. With smooth sticks, she shovels rice the short distance from bowl to mouth. Her hands are forklifts. Stories fall like rocks between bites. She excavates her life with shrill sounds and shrieks, metal against mineral. I gaze at her hands with their iron grip. My eyes scrape away skin to find hidden veins, earth laid raw. This one is called Gungung, which means grandfather. What I have of him is this, a certificate showing his arrival from China, the so-called son of a native, age 14, and noting a pin mole on his right cheek, which can't be seen in the small, bleached, black and white photo. From him, my older brother got a lot, and I got a few of those marks. In other photos, he's mostly stern, erect, posed, like a bowling pin before the blow, next to one or more of his 9 children. In some, you can see the slightest lift at the corners of his mouth. What I know of him is this: his journey from peasant boy to Astor King, lord of flower farmers, so the state archives tell me. And my grandmother, who outlived him by 3 decades and was probably not unhappy to lose his kingly company. I can guess from her tales of gambling, women, and more. But I won't tell those stories here. The Chinese don't like to air their dirty laundry. What I want to do is this: crumple that piece of paper in a ball and divine some relief in the landscape of his life. He who saw and knew and maybe even touched me during my first 6 months. And then I want to know, were you too ever lost, lonely, or afraid in this foreign place that we both call home? Thank you.
Alexa Baranov was born in Columbia and grown up in the Bay Area. She currently attends Berkeley City College, Laney, and Alameda, majoring in biostatistics, as well as minoring in advertisement. She has grown as a writer in the past few years since the last time she was published in the Milvia Street Journal. She intends to keep striving at her literary talents. Please welcome her up.
Hello, thank you for this opportunity to read this story. I'm going to read an excerpt from my story, A Person Like You. All right. Get out the damn car. That guy is hurt, Sam. I couldn't hear anything, and I realized I was shouting at him while I popped the passenger seat open. He's not our problem right now. I can see you're cut and I'm bleeding. He sat on the driver's seat looking like a drunken mess from the vodka in the cup holder. From his eyebrow, small red drops fell to the shirt, then the seat. My face got really hot, and I wanted to slam him against his own car and ask him why he was so dense and selfish. Everyone goes through rough times in their life, but that does not mean you put other people's lives in danger, along with your own. Yes, but the difference between you and him is that the worst that will happen to you is alcohol poisoning. Believe me, I hope you feel every drop. He could be dead for all we know because you decided to numb your body with poison. Sam reached for my hand, but I slipped out of his clammy hold. I walked to your door and stood for a second before placing my hand on the handle. The brand new BMW had been totaled. I thought that was a shame, especially because I realized a special series it was. Every joint in my body trembled as I put my hand to find a pulse on your neck. I didn't think you were dead, but a part of me only saw blood, and just that thought no one could have lived through that. Trying to not throw up and scream at the same time was so tough, but I kept composed even though the vision of red everywhere made it hard to keep my eyes open. The police officer asked me a question when all the bright blue and red lights started to come in, and I replied, pepperoni, the type of pizza the people in the car had been arguing over before the collision of metal tons. All I could do and remember were the thoughts I had before the accident. After I met you in the hospital, all I wanted were new thoughts to wash away the meaningless teenage years. I grew up, but not in the way I wanted, and your emotional block caused mine to reopen. Your life changed that night, but my life had changed in the course of 4 years leading up till then. The day James died in the dirt road was his bike, when his bike had transformed Sam and me. We were all each other's family, and then one day we became broken and lost without the third. Still I chose not to let my life spiral out of control. That didn't mean I didn't care about how much it hurt when James' life was taken, but it left my emotions on the side of the road. Wounds I shut out rushed back in when I saw that shirt stained with your blood the morning after. It lay on my floor in my bedroom. I could smell that day again. Lex, you need to come in. I don't want you to see his body. It's bruised and not the way you want to see him. Sam was protective, even though he was just as screwed with seeing his body in broken pieces. What I can't handle has nothing to do with you. Let me touch his pulse. They don't know what they're talking about. He's a fighter. He's not dead, no matter what you say to me. But there was nothing I could do. James was gone, and I dropped to my knees when I stepped into the ambulance. When I put my hand in his, I felt the dead. The palms that once squeezed my fingers just laid limp. The touch of James's lifeless body broke me in places that haven't been repaired until you, Mr. Parker. This pain has taught me how to live and now even how to love. The night after I stopped at the hospital to see you, I showered and examined the red drain in circles as I thought, this isn't mine, none of this is mine. How can someone else be so hurt when I was right there too? I made a promise under that hot water that I would make sure to witness you walking out of that hospital, that I would watch you through this. That's what I wish I had done with James, 8 months to say goodbye. Instead, he was snatched out of my life, and I had to live on without him. Instead, he was snatched out, but I was given a lesson and a second chance to say goodbye with you. My faith in God has become so much stronger than I ever believed because of you. People have blessed me with experiences, and you have made me learn a lot. I'm not a community service project. My family never coming here to visit should show you a sign that there are good reasons not to take care of me. Even God gave up on me. You replied to me as I brought breakfast. I'm not making the same mistake your family chose to make, and I bet if they were here now, they would make more of an effort. But you don't give them that chance, do you? As far as God goes, he never gives up on the criminals and the madmen of the world. He is definitely not giving up on you, Mr. Parker. Put down your pudding, you begged for vanilla that day, so I went out and bought a big tub. I had never spent that much on pudding and probably never will again. In all honesty, I feel like you were a coward for not reaching out to your family, just because you were scared to realize how much they do love you. It felt as though I spent less time getting you to stay healthy and more time keeping you to love yourself. Closer to the beginning of winter, I asked the nurse if we could go stand somewhere where the newborn babies were monitored. It felt odd, but I wanted to see the light in your eyes, seeing those delicate babies. If you hadn't cracked a smile, I would have labeled you for just void of emotion. But we saw through the window so many little fingers and toes, and it just makes you want to hold them and protect them because of their fragility. We stood there staring at their fresh faces, and from time to time, a tear fell from your ocean blue eyes. Oh, you see right there, that one will be a doctor, maybe a neuron surgeon. He looks like a brainiac. We laughed while telling their futures. You turned to me and mouthed, thank you. Those 2 words made me feel like I had done something right out of all the hours I spent with you, as though I brought life back to a lifeless body. This is the story of how I got to know you, but I only gave glimpses of what happened the first time we met. Blood-stained shirts, tears, and the rest of what I had left. I no longer drive just because I know what can happen if something goes wrong. I'm not scared for myself, but for someone like you. Someone who collides into the chaos of a stranger's mistakes. Sometimes I would rant for hours about just anything. Sometimes you gave me pieces of wisdom and humored my endless rambling. Thank you.
Our next reader, Brad Penner, is a student of English and life in general. He enjoys long walks along the creek, backpacking, and romping with his dog, Yogi, all of which are bound to happen simultaneously. If you cannot find him in Berkeley, he's probably abroad. Follow his travels at buhbrad.wordpress.com, and for spelling, that is buhbrad.wordpress.com. Thank you.
How y'all doing today? Good? So I got 2 poems for you. This first one is about my neighborhood. It's called Ocean View. Bare toes touched the tracks. Sun-bleached scars of soot and steel brought callous to the heel long before the young boy's nickel made flat for the kick of it. Dead nettle garden, dandelion quivers among ditches of flat tires and fires in drums, chasing fog-fucked Fridays with $2 Chuck. Sentiment cased in rusty gates, paint chips flake with the sea salt, then glitter in dying lampposts, the float of sediment east. Man on Gilman howls at the moon, sings of dead bottle oceans to the beat of locomotion from the north heading south into Oakland. Bare toes touch the tracks. Moon drips songs of soot and steel that rattle at the heel long after the young boy's nickel made flat for the kick of it. Thank you. So this second one is dedicated to one of my dearest friends who passed away about 2 years ago. He was the only person that I ever felt safe hitchhiking with. It's called Ode to My Road Dog. Beneath the bridge, in a suit of soot, wine, and trash, dust to dust. If ash is ash, in you I'd trust to remember the redwoods. We both left home so long ago, on the road sharing matches and switching off thumbs. The next town came around and I decided to run, left you for fear of Idaho. Leaving letters for winos bound for Fortuna, the postage stamp of a railroad tramp, cheap red turning blue. To the land of giants I let my hand go, beneath the bridge where they'd find you. Letters back for months I'd wait, scribbled prose shaking each sheet, of fog and DTs under redwood trees, the forgotten groan of coming home. And like that, it ceased. Your last letter in another hand, sent to Berkeley with a traveling band, paying postage for whiskey while you starved yourself from the caravan. Now that you're gone, I remember the dope-sick summers of Portland, the existential crisis in Bend, the fountain of youth in Olympia, busking for crab in Port Townsend, machetes and berries of Arlington, beer tab bracelets in Eugene, Oregon, Highway 126 leading us east, I remember. Remember the bark of whiskers, too old for wisdom, that flake and fall to feed the roots we have come from. Thank you.
Hannah Ryan is a Berkeley-born poet, has always loved language, and easily exudes the natural flamboyance of the East Bay area. She got her BA in English from Mills College, where she examined and refined her literary explorations. Since graduating, she has continued her exploration of writing and poetry through self-study and the wonderful poetry classes at BCC. Please welcome her up to the stage.
So I have a few poems, some old and some new. We try and step out and find it unstable. This table we have propped up to be our bridge between what we believe to be our separate worlds. We often find it more difficult than previously assumed to assume the correct position for a peace treaty. Instead, we try and throw atomic bombs just to make an impact and leave some proof we have attempted to connect. This is the poem in the journal. Lonely on a warm night. I wore a black dress on Saturday night. It looked like I was going dancing. Within a few blocks, my feet hurt, wearing shoes to match. It was an occasion. I know if you were there, you would have carried me or held my shoes. But you weren't. So I walked in pain up the hill to sit on cement and listen to beautiful music. Girls. Not enough supervision, the dark night beckons us. Calling for adventure, we stand on the curb or behind some old car. Small hands move quickly when exposing training bras. We laugh and feel liberated. Late at night, we show no fear, revealing soft skin as the bright headlights pass by. So this is something new that I'm working on, still needs a lot of work, so. The English language has over 1 million words and counting. Consider, the ways to express a sentiment or sensation is plentiful, profuse, liberal, and generous. It's enthralling to ponder, abundance overflows from my mind to mouth. How electrifying to feel the width of which I can expose myself to you. Interior becomes exterior. Although this continues to be true, generations flow in. New ideas abounding, pushing the boundaries of language, reforming what lingual and literary manifestation means. Some extraordinary. But with the rise of cellular connection comes the fall of this generation. I totes heart you, you're my BFF. Lol, you're so funny. Or is that implied? It's always disguised, no longer considering the true implication. The real weight to each syllable and its creation upon convergence with another. I lose words, not reused, but misused and then forgotten. Frittering time away, sounding out my vowels and consonants. If I add an emoticon, would you get the gist? Some form of emotional recognition would spark some other form of knowing. Lost to instant gratification, it's the next best thing. Gotta go, so I'll TTYL or sometime in the future, but I'll be right back. No need to hold anyone to the point of real connection because it's already lost. Hello? Can you hear me now?
Okay. Will K. Liang-Nazarkhan is currently a student at UC Berkeley, majoring in peace and conflict studies and development studies. She is also one of the founding members of Unity, BCC's Gay Straight Alliance, and is born in Japan and raised in Oakland. She is fiercely proud of her Korean and Uzbek Tajik heritage, and she finds her greatest poetic muse to be the memories she keeps of her grandmother. Please welcome her to the stage.
Hi. So this poem is called 슬퍼하자. In Korean, that's the imperative conjugation that means let us mourn. And this poem is a reflection on 제사, which are funeral rites that we hold for people after they've died. Okay. Halmoni kneels before a Polonia altar. Map of Korea on the right, and a portrait of a smiling 할아버지 on the left. Agarwood incense wisps into dragon smoke calligraphy and perfumes the worm alert. Samchon tells his stories, awoken from morning calm by blinding horizons, walls of soldiers marching through Seoul, first wife dead for their comforts, children dead for sport, valuable stolen, exhibited in their capital as trophies still on display, uprooted and replanted onto foreign soil, hands rough from assembling their grenades, once soft from crafting rice wine for mountain gods, now crying from holes besieged into their faces and eating rice rations laced with sawdust. And when the son surrendered to the eagles, he couldn't return home to the morning anymore. Kimigayo, that melody trails from the other room, and mom gives a look. The TV set turns off. Please give us this moment of observance. Thank you.
Hannah Landau is a 21-year-old woman living in the East Bay with borderline personality disorder. After bouncing around institutions from California to Texas, she wants to eliminate the stigma of mental illness and to inform the public of the true nature of people struggling with all types of different problems. In her spare time, she volunteers at a feral cat clinic as a surgical assistant. Please welcome her to the stage.
So my story is about mental illness, and I wanted to welcome anyone to ask me any questions about mental illness afterwards. If you're worried about yourself or another person, I can't guarantee to help you, but I would love to try. So, my story is called 5150. When you generally think of psych wards, you think of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or Girl Interrupted. What if I told you they're exactly like the combination of the two? Between the drama and the escape attempts of one day, you could fill a season of a new television show. You would think docs just throw you in, but the process is actually quite complex. The intrusive psych evaluation, the strip search where the cop gave me a judging look for the tattoo on my ass of a pinup girl, the spraying of flea medication that smelled like bleach to make sure the homeless people didn't infect me. Each step is more and more dehumanizing. By the end, you're almost numb with red desert eyes. I sat in the one unstained corner of the windowless room that I'd be spending the next 17 days in. Watching other inmates, you could tell where they were from, judging by the gowns they were given by the emergency room before they got thrown in this place. It almost looked like gangs of crazy people, sporting their pride for the region with designs of blue triangles or flowers. Some girls were comparing the hair on their legs and nagging a nurse to let them use a razor. I could hear a man talking low to himself and chanting, "They're all out to get me," over and over again. I was starting to take on this mantra as well after the day that brought me here. My stitches started to itch, and my wrist ached from the handcuffs they used to transport me here. I strained a smile, at the 5150 graffiti on the wall, remembering that's how the police called me in when I was thrashing in their back seat. It's only a 72-hour hold, but it became so much more after they got me to open my mouth. What meds you on? I was startled by a bearded man who plopped down next to me. Prozac and Adderall, I replied. I'm the Energizer Bunny, baby. I'm running on lithium. I'm on Valium, too, if you want to trade your Adderall at meds o'clock. I was surprised by his upbeat attitude. What about the nurses? I whispered. He leaned in. He smelled faintly of lime jello. Cheek it, sweetheart, he whispered back with a wink. I nodded. We were silent then. I watched him fidget from the corner of my eye. You know, he quickly filled the silence. You used to group us by our disorders, but the schizos were paranoid of each other, and the psychopaths were getting off on murder stories together. He laughed. I didn't really know why, but it was comforting that he was trying to cheer me up. The stranger was the first person to talk to me like a human being all day. You're a cutter, right? A voice interrupted. I followed the voice up to see a bored-looking nurse standing over me, wearing her hair tightly in a bun as a poor excuse for a facelift. Yeah? Come with me. We teach the cutters how to crochet. Keeps your hands busy. I lifted my aching body off the floor and started to follow her. It was the longest day of my life, and I could feel my bones tire. See you later, Landau, the bearded man called out. Shocked and intrigued, I asked, how did you know my name? You still have your hospital bracelet on, sweetie. My name's Jared. Go crochet me a hat, will you? It's freezing in here. Will do, I smirked back. If I knew I'd be in a hotel snorting coke off Jared's stomach and drinking tequila-infused blue raspberry Slurpees in less than a month, I wouldn't have befriended him. But it's hard not to grow close when trapped in a room with someone for 17 days. People called us the aristocrats, since both our names are known as jewelry companies. Jared and Landau. 2 flawed diamonds not fit to sell in a store. Thank you.
What a great last line. Michael Hartman is an engaging older man who has come to poetry. You're not that old. Who came to poetry and writing rather late in his life, even though brother Antonimus was his godfather. His proudest accomplishments to date have been a 32-year and counting marriage to his spouse Susan, being the father of their son Alex, and having worked as a journeyman electrician from the late 1970s until his retirement in 2010. This is the very first publication of his poems. Please welcome up to the stage.
A microphone. Oh, my. Thank you, Matthew. I have 2 poems in here, and one of them is on page 46. No, it's not. It's actually 40 something. Oh, it's 49, excuse me. Alone. Handguns are the great equalizer. Nothing can turn a big, beautiful boy into a cooling pile of meat more quickly. The first man you kill is the hardest, they say. In the moments after you've pulled the trigger, you can feel your twitching body letting go of 1,000 taut strings that were holding you, where people are good, where they're awash in the love of the divine. You are suddenly, completely on your own. Isa. Isa's name came from a dream. Her mother spoke with the women. You can name her Isa, said one. Then you could call her Isita, said another. She has a woman's name, the name the women gave her. They honored her as one of their own. They blessed her coming into the world. They were there when she was born, when the cord wrapped twice around her neck caught her young life in its coils. Was it they who guided the surgeon's knife as it sliced, bloody deep into her mother's belly? Did their hands find her did they pull her gently through the clotting layers of tissues. In her fight to free herself, the fluid around her was fouled. Isa breathed in the green stain, lodging some in the branches of her lungs. The women cared for her, nursing her body, touched her, held her through the dangers of her first week, for she was a woman child, and a child the women had named.
Up next, Katy Gallagher grew up in San Diego and lives in Oakland. Most days she's working in stuffy rooms with naked babies and worried parents. She likes dirt, animals, and people. She tries to put aside plenty of time to write, but finds it difficult to sit in one place for long periods, so this is a challenge. When not writing, she attempts to pin down what is exquisite about being alive. Please welcome her up to the stage.
Hi. It's kind of chilly in here. I'm actually going to adjust this. I used to go into the canyon when I was a kid. A trail covered with soft dirt wound down through the ice plant and sage. Homeless people lived there. Clearings in the chaparral were strewn with blankets and crumpled clothing. I'd seen them on the bus staring blankly at the passing pavement. Some stood quietly peeing on the fence at the side of our house. Sometimes they'd look all around themselves and mutter, yell, or make fast gestures. It seemed like their inside thoughts were on the outside, but mostly they were quiet, looking down, walking softly. In the early morning, when the sky was still lavender, I could hear their shopping carts rattle in the alley from my bedroom. I'd lay in bed under soft blankets and think of their nights spent sleeping in the canyon, their exhales floating out into the sky. The dirt was filled with shell fossils where they slept, white shards like pieces of a shattered moon layered in the exposed sandstone cliff. Standing on the rim of the canyon above the constant shush of the freeway, the landscape forced my face west towards the blue stripe of ocean. I thought of what it would be like to stand there, stare at the ocean, and not have a home. High school kids from the rough families knew names of some of the homeless on the boardwalk. We were discreetly paying attention to life's outcomes. Somebody would point and say, "Hey, there's Mr. Mackey, or Birdie, or JJ the Toad." The day we saw the dead whale, they were huddled happily on the seawall in greasy clothes, fingers clutching bottles and cans. A toothless man laughed wildly and gestured to the animal. The gigantic, rotting carcass had appeared on the sand after a tide change. It was featured on the San Diego news and lured everyone to the beach. Behind the blonde newscaster's dress suit and microphone, the whale was slumped in the distance. We could smell it from blocks away. It was putrid and filled me with embarrassment. People from different parts of the city watched it from the sand. A teenage couple held hands, staring from where Diamond Street dead-ended. A girl with dreadlocks and a flower print skirt wafted towards it. She danced around the whale, pushing incense sticks into its soft fat, which oozed in the midday sun. One morning, It was chained and towed a few miles out. They let it sink peacefully down. There was something about standing on the beach, watching the ocean. It made me feel like a failure. So I started to throw myself at it. I learned how to relax underwater, how to soften and let it drag me fast, forcing my curled body wide open, twisting me around in changing directions. I wouldn't know which way was up. Then the wave passed, and the air sacs in my lungs rose like magnets pulling me skyward. I'd kick my feet to the surface, breathe through tangled hair and seaweed. The trick is to relax so that you don't run out of oxygen. And when the water roughs you up, you go limp and surrender, like an animal playing dead. Sometimes, if you are deep, you get close to the bottom where the wave can't reach. You curl up with your eyes shut, and it's still. I'd open my eyes and watch the surface squirm in slow motion, licking itself under the bright light of the atmosphere. Down there, the ocean recedes into darkness over tiny ridges of sand. There is the distant tink sound of water lapping on the surface. Otherwise, nothing. I tried to disappear into it. I drove back down over and over.
G.S. Scott is concerned with place, family, and the geography our politics define. Her work aims to explore how we recognize ourselves, gaps, and home ground. She writes flash fiction, essays, and poetry. Her work has appeared online in River Babble, Doorknobs, and Body Paint, the Feldenkrais Journal, and Milvia Street. A transplant, she has lived in Berkeley, California since 1963. Please welcome her up.
Hi. I wanted to thank Sharon and everybody who's made this possible. We wouldn't be here otherwise. And I really want to thank everybody I've been in class with, because that's where it's at. Please don't clap between the poems, all right? Because it'll derail me completely. I'm serious. This is a little old poem. Not a little old, it's an old poem. Breakfast. The spell I tell you is almost the same spell you tell me each morning reading the newspaper while we eat mulberries from the garden, staining our hands. This is a new one. Beach. I pretend to know nothing about Gaza, but I know something about silence, locks, long afternoon naps awake, the sound of wind before storms, about longing to play at a beach closed on account of epidemic and neglect. A boy throws rocks from his heart. I know how to throw a stone at the water and watch it skip once, twice, before it drowns, without target. The sound of bombs misshapes the ear. Can you hear the sea? And this one, this is, oh, not that one. Come on, where are you? This is a Hybelin, and it's a kind of longish prose with a little haiku at the end, and I don't usually write them, but I had to. St. Andrews, New Brunswick, that's in Canada. You drive, then I drive, a blur of turnpikes, big cars packed and heading to the shore for vacation, fried clams, sand. Judy emails, beds are made, table about to be set, welcome. Each summer, Carl's lobster bisque is more complex, richer, brandy, cream, ground carapace. St. Andrews is just 19 miles from Calais, Maine. Calais is pronounced hard, like callous. Even in summer, the town endures the short geometry of winter. Its border river metal in the long north light, a reminder of the men who wouldn't go to Nam. Finally, here is the Bar Road, and at its end, ancient cedar hedges protect the garden from the Bay of Fundy. The peonies are in bloom, so is a celibate kiwi with lime green flowers like gooseberries. Its sentinels an opening to the beach. The house is still here, gray, generous, a long porch for lunch, reading, falling asleep. One afternoon we nap on the wood in the sun, no pillows, bone content. Somewhere in the house, big enough for ghosts, Carl and Judy nap as well. My father is here on his way south from fishing in Newfoundland. There is the sound of tennis balls on Argilla Road. Judy's mother's voice announcing lunch. Judy's father, my mother's Harvard friend, is here under his eyebrows, Judy's eyebrows. My cousin Eve drifts here. She killed herself, perhaps by accident, before her wedding to a young Cambridge physician who loved her. Our bedroom is always the same. Our bedroom is always the one that faces east to the bay and beyond to Melville's Atlantic. I lose you in the acre bed, sleep well and wake to sun, and smell of cooking bacon. Then Carl squeezes orange juice, his formula for enduring health. Huqua tea steeps. My mother served it afternoons, as did her mother, as I do alone west in California. The Bay of Fundy, 22-foot tides, return, depart without us.
Born and raised in the Philippines, Wilfred Gelila is in the pursuit of deciphering the ramifications of cultural hybridity in his post-colonial mind. He also likes to make the MC say difficult words. As a writer, his work has been published in Beyond Lupia? Lupia. It's delicious. Okay, I'll take your word. Pansin and Seven Mangang's Wild, an anthology of short prose and poetry by Filipino-American writers. As a photographer, he was commissioned for the Kodakian Project, exploring and making visible in the various identities of Filipinos in San Francisco through still and moving images. He also makes music and rocks out with his psychedelic garage punk band, Electrosonic Chamber. Please welcome him to the stage.
Grand Slam breakfast. At 5:30 in the morning, the alarm clock rings like a cricket on a mating frenzy. Half awake, Hernan reaches out and taps it into silence. He gets up, sits on the side of his bed, and with eyes still closed, his feet search for a pair of slippers parked nearby. He reaches for his glasses and walks, half asleep, to the bathroom for his morning routine, usually without a shower. Mornings in Daly City are obscured by cold fog, as if the heavens have descended, blanketing the landscape with perennial daybreak precipitation that rattles your bones, aches your muscles, and can be quite uncomfortable when you're old. Hernan starts his day by relieving himself, then splashes water on his face, gargles with mouthwash, and puts his dentures on. He dries up and changes into a flannel shirt over a t-shirt and a pair of jeans. He smiles at himself in the mirror. Lines crease on his forehead around his squinting eyes and below raised cheek muscles that frame his mouth. It's as if it was just yesterday that he saw himself in the mirror looking sharp in his uniform, a stiff brown collar around his neck, and a youthful face with slick black hair that was now as white as the fog outside. At 94, Hernan Galiarte is lucky to be alive. In spite of heart complications, his health is relatively good, and his mind is still as sharp as a rusty nail. If you want to know what happens next, it's $7 for students and $10 for the rest of the people. It will go to the printing of Milvia Street 2015, 25th anniversary issue. And in an act of shameless self-promotion, I'm going to read something from our zine, something worth revising. This is issue number 1. Issue number 2 is available for sale as of 11 a.m. And you could also find this at the Milvia Street table, as well as from Brad, Penner, or Anthony. They're around. Infection. Complaining of recurrent itching on its rectum, the universe consults with a specialist to determine the cause of the condition. The specialist gives a rundown of the test results. After isolating the exact location in the problematic area to be a component of a solar system that consists of 9 molecules, including a dwarf body, which revolves around a nucleus, the results have shown that a section of your nether region is infected with a rare mutated virus known collectively in its present form as Homo sapiens sapiens. This virus, known to be complicated but aimless, is inherently harmful only to itself, after observing its tendency of ravaging its host molecule and its capability for self-destruction. It has been in a relatively benign state for the last 20 million years. Only recently has it began external activities from its host, having sent out probes, which we have determined by far to be harmless and unsuccessful in infecting other molecules nearby. Therefore, there should be no cause for alarm. We will continue to monitor its progress. If the virus does not self-destruct in the next 100 years, we will proceed with PBT, or what is known as projectile blasting treatment, of the molecule as we have done in the past, eradicating a reptile infestation with favorable results. In the meantime, refrain from scratching the infected area, get plenty of rest, and drink lots of antimatter.
Thank you. I too have a Spanish alter ego. It is Senor Brasas Forte. That's what you can call me on Saturday nights. Back to the reading. Evelyn Grant was born in San Francisco, the daughter of an engineer and a homemaker. By profession, she is a lawyer, library administrator, and teacher. Evelyn only recently started writing poetry in mid-adulthood, although she has devoured poetry all her reading life. Among her influences are Wanda Coleman, Phila Lamenta, Wilma Elizabeth McDaniel, and Ishmael Reed. Please welcome her to the stage.
I should say my best influences are people who belong to the Milvia community. Yes. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Sharon. The button jar. Some notions are not fit for the rag pile. They are kept and fingered by tired hands, held by the sentimental, saved by the prudent, treasured by the mender, admired over and over by a woman who struggles against the ordinary and cultivates beauty within a tightly lidded glass jar. Mason, mayonnaise, utilitarian, apothecary, or within an old fruitcake tin, wide-brimmed, hidden in the back bedroom, moved from house to house, full of bone mother-of-pearl, plastic silk brass shell, and the unexpected. Darning egg campaign pin, thimble, baby tooth, shimmers of circled spectra samples, sparkle texture for her pleasure, in piles of spillage and sorting games, giving laughter to girls fascinated with fasteners. Grandmothers accumulated the whole of their lives, memorializing the family's work, play, and Sunday best, better than any picture, wall, or scrapbook, until the woman of the house dies, and a stranger tosses a jar into the estate garbage, or the jar is sold impersonally as shabby chic.
So, I could give this person a very lengthy introduction, but it wouldn't do her justice, so I won't introduce her at all. Please welcome Sharon.
Thank you, everybody. I also want to thank all the editors. Deborah James here did so much reading of the Milvia Street Journal, and we want to thank her for doing all this. And Annie Kane, is Annie Kane still here? No, okay. Well, in absentia, let's give a big applause for Annie and for Larry Leisure. And thank you for everybody for making this journal come alive and be everything. I would be nothing without you. I'd be asleep looking at the rain. Thank you for everything and being such a great community and pulling it together and still being your own separate selves and making it happen. So yes, let's go on for 25 more years. Yay. And go enjoy the rest of the East Bay Alternative Book and Zine Fest.